So we're here with the pioneering woman in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander health research and advocacy, Miss Pat Anderson, to talk about leadership and the NAIDOC theme this year, Because of Her, We Can. So because of you, I can do the things that I want to do in my life. Who were the women in your life?
It was all those women at prep camp that actually grew up at Carlin Compound with my mother. And as young women, they came also at mothers to prep camp. This was where they put us in those days. There were several camps in Darwin, but I grew up in the one called prep camp. And all the women there were there, all the mothers, and in the living we really lived really close to each other and knew everybody, all of our business. We all knew each other's business. I was surrounded by these really strong women. And it's only as I've gotten older that I've realised, all these women that I called auntie and their husband's uncle, how influential they were on my life. And they were all these amazing characters doing all sorts of fantastic things. And I just feel so privileged to have known and grown up as a young child, I'm a young woman really, at prep camp with all of those women. I mean, there was one that sticks out was Auntie Judy at the time, which was very unusual. She rode a push bike and she wore shorts. And she used to come down and help out with the family, the Armat family down the road. And we still all thinking when Auntie Judy would come, Auntie Judy's coming, Auntie Judy. And we thought she was pretty crash hot. We didn't know anybody who wore shorts and rode a bike. She was just one of the standouts just by who she was. And she seemed so self-contained and I remember being impressed. I don't know why I was impressed, but I was. She didn't seem to have any family or any kids. She was just Auntie Judy and she worked. She seemed like an independent type of woman. I think I would use that language now. And I was pretty impressed with that she was self-sufficient, self-contained and could come and go and she earned her own money. I was pretty impressed with that. So there was all these women that impressed me, and that not only were they self-contained, these women, they had big families, a lot of them, functioning families, but they were, some of them were so beautiful as well. I mean, there was a couple of women that looked, I don't know, probably the audience won't even know this film actress, but they like Ava Gardner, they're all so beautiful. They're beautiful inside and really strong women. So I feel really privileged and really lucky to have grown up in a whole house, not only a household of women. I've got 5 sisters, but there are also these women friends of my mother, including my mother, of course, who was like the kingpin of all, the queen bee of all these activities in our household anyhow. So I'm lucky that I knew all these women and grew up with, and that they still affect me today. I can still see Auntie Judy on her push bike and her brown linen shorts and white shirt.
In particular, your career, would you say the shoulders that you stood on, like because of them, you can and have done the things that you've done?
Look, it's all of those women, as I said earlier, and it's only as I get older that I realise how important they are in my life. But I think, in the last 20 years, the woman that's I've I've admired considerably is Lowitja O'Donoghue, because we worked closely together for the last 20 years. She was the first chairperson of the pre-CEDA organisations of the Lowitja Institute, the CRCs. Lowitja came not long after ATSIC had been wound up by the government. We approached Lowitja to be the first chairperson of the first CRC for Aboriginal and Tropical Health in Darwin. And I learned a lot from her. I have to say, she's a consummate chair. She can read a room like I haven't seen anybody else read a room like Lowitja can. And she had all these rules for herself in terms of chairing. So that was just one aspect of who she is. I mean, it's all the things that she's done in her life, including, I was so impressed when I realised she'd been a young nurse working in India in the Assam region. I thought that was really great. I don't know any other Aboriginal nurses that go on, to India to work. So she's full of all these surprises, I think, as well as all the hard work that she's done. I think she's an example for the younger women you were talking about earlier about what you can learn. She is a hard grafter. She really, she's whatever she's taken on, she's done the hard yard, she's done the work, she's been principled, she's been strong and solid and what have you. So she's a really good example, certainly in the last 20 years. But there's a whole host of younger women coming up who are impressive. I watched Marcia Langton, come to the forefront. I knew her, she was a student a long time ago now, it seems. And of course, I think, and there's a whole raft of younger women now on the national scene. Some are up and coming at the moment and very topical because of the constitutional discussions that we've been having. The constitutional lawyer, Professor Megan Davis, is really brilliant in that area, and there are others following in her footsteps as well. Tila Reid, is young women all over the country who I'm really happy that I can look behind and I see them all there. So I'm happy that, there's plenty of women and women like yourself who've chosen a whole other field. There's young women, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander women all over the country, and I think they're all fantastic, and I'm very proud of all the work that they do. I think only as I've gotten older have I realised how important, in terms of where I get this strong sense of justice and a really strong sense of right and wrong. I know small children do have a sense of right and wrong, but it was fostered by my parents and all of these other women around, because it was pretty difficult growing up. In the 50s, Australia was a different place than it is now. So this sense of what was right and what was wrong was really strong, and because we were feeling the full impact of it in Prep Camp and the other camps around Darwin. So we experienced injustice and racism almost every day. Not that racism has gone away. I mean, it's a big issue for Australia today, even though But in the 50s, it was like it is now. It was pretty much in your face and pretty much on a daily basis. And we used to listen to the radio about Aboriginal people in the other states doing things, and other Torres Strait Islander people coming, because a lot of the men used to come, worked on the railway. They would come through prep camp, and we knew lots of families and what have you, so we had that connection. But also, we heard them on the radio when they set up the Advancement League in Victoria, in Melbourne, and so there were all these sorts of things happening which we used to hear on the radio, and everyone had an opinion about it. And if there were any meetings, we'd all sort of go, all us kids would go as well and sit on the blankets till we all fell asleep. And so we were hearing this stuff because it was very much part of everyday life. So once again, I feel very proud to have been part of that in a really small way.
What sort of barriers, though, like through your careers that you've faced that maybe we should be wary of or something?
Look, can I say there's also heaps and heaps of younger men. I think some of our young men are really, really impressive. I just sort of like to say that we're in safe hands with both our young women and also our young men, who are different to the men of my generation. As much as I love them, these younger men seem a little bit more rounded. Barriers, well, don't forget, I've been around a long time, and a lot of the barriers that women felt, there's all this non-Aboriginal people call it, the glass ceiling, and there was also a little bit of that, a little bit of we felt that we had to be considerate of our brothers who were working in the same space, and often there were tensions in that area. But with time and what have you, and the changes now, a lot of those men have become really, really good mates. But there was a time when there were lots of challenges. So whether the challenges within and also the challenges without. I mean, there's constant. The big thing in this country, of course, is racism, which I think overbounds sexism in our case, because we had a double whammy. Not only were we women, but there was that with all the things surrounding that, and that barriers were there. There was also the barrier which remains today, and I think it's a big issue for us, is the extent and effect of racism.
What has helped you achieve everything that you have achieved?
What's helped? I think having, and I don't know where this comes from, I think not only was having that strong sense of justice that my parents gave to us all, and I feel it quite strongly. I also had a really strong sense of self. So I kind of was bullish enough not to take no for an answer and just push ahead, because when I was young I thought I was right and knew everything, like most young people. But it has been an enabler, and along the way I've learnt to finesse that kind of almost aggressive energy too. So I've learned to use that in a way to manipulate, massage whatever is happening, situations and what have you, to get what I've decided that I want out of this. So I don't know where those things come from, this strong sense of self. I really don't understand that, but I am very conscious of it, and I always have been since I was small. But how, I don't know. So that's been an enabler. That's a hard question to answer, but I think this strong conviction about who I was has been a big, huge help to me.
And what are the markers of success for an individual and then also for a community?
Achieve what you set out to do. Success for us, for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, often doesn't mean the same as it does for non-Indigenous people. So success can be all those kids in that family are going to school on a regular basis, for example, and that they're being cared for enough so as when they go to school they actually can pay attention. Small thing, profound impact for that particular family and for, of course, for that community.
As a young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman, what advice would you give to me about leadership?
Go to school. Don't leave school early. Go as far as you can. Learn as much as you can at school in formal education. And then once you decide what you think you'd like to do, might not be the end decision, but once you decide, give yourself over to it. Learn as much as you can about it. Be the best you can. When you talk about it, when you're talking at any function or at any conference or anything, you need to know your subject matter. So don't think that you can wing it. So do the hard yards. There's no easy way forward. You have to do the work. And if you do that and you're dedicated and you're committed and you believe in what you're doing, you're going to be a huge success. But don't forget who you are. Always remember where you come from, who your family is, and what your beginnings are. I reckon that's a recipe for success.
So looking into the future, because of you, we can, what would you like us to do?
I've spent a lifetime working in the space as part of the struggle. And I've sat, like a lot of Aboriginal people around the country, I've sat on committees, I've changed the national agenda, often compromised myself, thinking that I could get an outcome from there. So I've spent a whole life since I was 15 working in this space. Now, we Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in this country, we have done absolutely everything, and fundamentally there's been no structural reform. The system has to change. So there has to be a profound change in how the government of the day and the non-Indigenous population of Australia relates to us. There has to be a new relationship. And I hope in my lifetime that I will see constitutional change, structural reform, which will give us a proper place in the fabric of this wonderful country, which in fact we are the custodians of. This is our place, and I feel like often, despite all our efforts and all the wonderful successes in contemporary Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander society, we are still at prep camp on the fringes. That's got to stop. That's the big task for us all over this next little while. So until we get proper structural reform, I just think we're just going to keep going round and round in circles, and the government of the day, whatever political persuasion, is going to tell us that they know better than us, and this is what we're going to do now. That has to stop. that has to stop, and there has to be a new relationship and some settlement negotiated between us mob. This is our country, this is our place, this continent belongs to us. We are the custodians of it with the people who came after us.